disrupted.
America that I fought.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Been a fantastic day so far. So, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, took some time out of his busy war schedule to warn us about the most terrifying creatures on the world right now. Far dangerous than Hamas, far more worse than ISIS, even far more worse than Al-Qaeda. He warns us about the American college student. I kid you not, because in the past few weeks, Ivy League schools from Columbia and Harvard and Yale and all different institutions have been the centerfolds of the media spotlight recently as more and more pro-Palestinian protests are emerging and how college students are reacting to these institutions continuing to get support from AIPAC and from Israel lobby groups, but also in the fact that now these colleges have to make an ultimate decision into keeping the balance of getting the slush fund from war profiteers and respecting the civil liberties of their students. So here's Bibi Netanyahu warning us how dangerous college institutions have become and how there's a rapid fire of anti-Semitism from college kids speaking out against war.
What's happening on America's college campuses is horrific. Anti-Semitic mobs have taken over leading universities. They call for the annihilation of Israel. They attack Jewish students. They attack Jewish faculty. This is reminiscent of what happened in German universities in the 1930s. It's unconscionable. It has to be stopped. It has to be condemned, and condemned unequivocally. But that's not what happened. The response of several university presidents was shameful. Now, fortunately, state, local, federal officials, many of them have responded differently, but there has to be more. More has to be done. It has to be done not only because they attack Israel, that's bad enough. Not only because they want to kill Jews wherever they are, that's bad enough. It's also, when you listen to them, it's also because they say not only death to Israel, death to the Jews, but death to America. And this tells us that there's an anti-Semitic surge here that has terrible consequences. We see this exponential rise of anti-Semitism throughout America and throughout Western societies as Israel tries to defend itself against genocidal terrorists. Genocidal terrorists who hide behind civilians. Yet it is Israel that is falsely accused of genocide. Israel that is falsely accused of starvation and all sundry war crimes. It's all one big libel. But that's not new. We've seen in history that anti-Semitic attacks were always preceded by vilification and slander. Lies that were cast against the Jewish people that are unbelievable, yet people believed them. And what is important now is for all of us who are interested and cherish our values and our civilization, to stand up together and to say enough is enough. We have to stop anti-Semitism because anti-Semitism is the canary in the coal mine. It always precedes larger conflagrations that engulf the entire world. So I ask all of you, Jews and non-Jews alike, who are concerned with our common future and our common values, to do one thing: stand up, speak up, be counted. Stop anti-Semitism now.
And that is exactly what these college kids are doing. They are speaking out that this war that was manufactured under your hands, that you are now conflating with, saying that's anti-Semitic, even though these people are not speaking about the Jewish faith. This has nothing to do with the Jewish faith. This has to do with the fact that a country overseas that we paid money towards, and we're still continuing to exonerate these war crimes, are causing the most absurd war crimes and complete genocide and wiping out a civilization. That is what they're calling out. They're calling out to stop the war. And imagine the same exact, like, listening to this just sounds like the exact same rhetoric that we were told about Iraq during the early 2000s. If you don't support us storming into Iraq, that means you're pro-terrorist and you're pro-Saddam Hussein. Hey, if you don't want us to go in Afghanistan, I guess you must be pro-Osama bin Laden. You wanted 9/11 to happen. exact same rhetoric that they've done for every single war that's been manufactured. Again, to bring those emotions together, to make you feel bad about yourself, to sucker people in to their outrageous war agenda. But people have seen it, people have lived through it, and they're witnessing it on social media. They're witnessing amateur video live coverage of what is actually happening over there, and they're saying enough is enough. That college campuses should not be assisting in the financial services of another country's war crimes. Considering we already have enough war crimes of our own, why are we paying for other people's? Jeez. So typical. So, this obviously causes stir, and, for example, Columbia University had a panic about this. So, Columbia University, because, oh my God, a foreign leader is now dictating that we need to do something. We need to shape up because we're calling you out. Columbia cancels in-person classes after days of pro-Palestinian protests. Golly, it's back to the COVID days. Yay! E-learning. Wow. I guess that stay-at-home persona really paid off. So this goes into saying that Columbia University announces all classes will be virtual Monday as Passover begins following days of pro-Palestinian protests on campus. Big-name colleges have been cracking down more aggressively on pro-Palestinian protests, which they say are getting increasingly intense and disruptive. And when I see, them saying that's intense and disruptive after witnessing the horrific measures that came out of BLM and Black Lives Matter and the riots after George Floyd, they literally told people to burn down buildings. They literally told people to damage infrastructure. They told people to do severe damage to cities and towns across America, upward costing them billions of dollars to restore. So anytime I see any article saying that college protests, them chanting and singing songs and holding up Bristol board paper is disruptive and intense, is an absolute joke, considering what we've already dealt with through other means of rioting, other means of protesting, and they encouraged it. Columbia President Minshew Shavik. Oh, man. I hope I don't have to pronounce that more often. Called the New York Police Department last week on pro-Palestinian activists who set up an encampment again immediately after. Way to go, kids. NYPD arrested more than 100 people after Shavik requested their removal. Students across an array of communities have conveyed fears for their safety, and we have announced additional actions we are taking to address security concerns, she said in a statement. The decibel of our disagreements has only increased in recent days. And isn't it amazing that they're worried about the safety of their students? And you get, Ben Shapiro, for example, who spent years telling college kids and campuses that you don't deserve safe spaces, that you're going to have to grow up. This is part of real life society. You're going to have to interact with people that you disagree with. And now all of a sudden, Ben Shapiro has turned into one of those whiny brats. And now college campuses are turning the other cheek. It just amazes me how things have sharply turned after this incident. After the fact that people are awakened and not falling into the trap once again of war propaganda. That now all of a sudden Ben Shapiro is demanding safe spaces. He's demanding the vulnerable be protected. Because people are saying words. She had that individuals who are not affiliated with Columbia have to come to campus to pursue their own agendas. Pledge allegiance for war crimes, I guess, right? That's the agenda? Protests over the weekend, seemingly unaffiliated with the university, were accused of celebrating Hamas and targeting Jewish students, the New York Times reported. At Yale University, police also arrested pro-Palestinian protesters Monday morning. A large group of Columbia faculty and staff held a walkout and news conference on Monday afternoon, criticizing the university's handling of the protests. The university declined to comment on the moment. I understand that many are experiencing deep moral distress and want Columbia to help alleviate this by taking action. We should have serious conversations about how Columbia can contribute. A working group of deans, university administrators, and faculty members will work to try to bring this crisis to a resolution per Shafiq's request. The concealed classes coincide with the first day of Passover, which begins at sunset on Monday. And this has been going on, with other college campuses, Ivy League schools. They're really showing on the mainstream media, but this is going along with all these different college campuses. Because again, this goes back to why they want to ban applications like TikTok. They want to go after social media. They want to censor you from seeing the truth. They don't want people to know what's actually happening in this war because they can't sell you the idea of war. And because young people are very interactive, they're so socially media savvy that they know what's going on. They know that's a hoax. They don't turn on the TV and just fall into the propaganda that's spewed to them at the 6 o'clock news. They could see in real time what is happening on the grounds in Gaza. They could see what's happening right on their phones. And that's why they're stepping up and saying enough is enough. Like, we don't want our campuses to be infiltrated with war criminals. Especially ones that are doing horrific genocide, wiping out an entire population. So now the Colombia president, Mishu Savik, sets deadline for anti-Israel protests to reach agreement to dismantle encampment. So again, this is the Colombian university's big conundrum right now, is trying to figure out, well, how can I please the students and get things back on track, but then also still take that hush money from known war criminals, known military-industrial complex, and push for our agenda. Because now big-name figures are backing out from funding Columbia University. So this is why now all of a sudden they're taking action. Because they're realizing that this is a business loss for them. This is a money-losing opportunity for these big Ivy League schools because college kids are stepping up to the plate. So their alternative, their solution, is to send Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, who got heckled and booed at Columbia University. Gee! I thought college kids would be more excited for the Speaker of the House, considering Congress has screwed that generation 9 ways to Sunday. They thought that was going to go well. They thought that bringing the Speaker of the House, to a university to try to settle with these kids is going to work out. God, I love America. So it says Columbia University students heckled U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson on Wednesday as he visited the flashpoint of nationwide student demonstrations over Israel's war in Gaza as the school extended negotiations to end a protest encampment. Johnson's visit to the Manhattan campus, which he said was meant to support Jewish students, intimidated. I don't know why I couldn't say that. But by some anti-Israeli demonstrations, took place shortly after the university extended a deadline by 48 hours to Friday morning to reach an agreement to remove an encampment that has come to symbolize the campus protest movement. Some of the campus protests taking place coast to coast were met with shows of force from law enforcement. In Texas on Wednesday, state highway patrol officers in riot gear and police in horseback broke up a protest at the University of Texas in Austin. The Texas Department of Public Safety posted on X that 34 people had been arrested. The University of Southern California declared its campus closed and asked the Los Angeles Police Department to clear a demonstration. Police arrested students who peacefully surrendered one by one hours after campus police who took down an encampment were overwhelmed by protesters and requested by the LAPD's help. And they call that disruptive. They call that a mess. They call it a racket. That students are peacefully surrendering to law enforcement. Peacefully, willing to actually be arrested for this. Again, we live in such clownish times. We went through what we went through with Black Lives Matter, and they're saying this is the worst of all. The LAPD posted on X late on Wednesday that 93 people were arrested for trespassing and 1 for assault with a deadly weapon. No injuries were reported. Students also demonstrated at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Cambridge, and California State Polytech in Humboldt. So they're definitely losing this. They're definitely losing Israel, AIPAC, Netanyahu. They're losing this case. They're losing it. Because not just college kids in all these different campuses across America, but also the amount of support from other nations around the world for the end of this horrific genocide, the end of funding this horrific war crime against humanity, the starvation of young children in Gaza. There is so much outbled support, nation after nation, that they have nothing else but to send law enforcement, censor out people, and start attacking them and attacking their civil liberties. That's all they have left because they can't sell the idea of war to the younger generation, especially since the younger generation, a lot of them, if they're over 20, have lived through the war on terror. They lived through all these war crimes. They lived through the experience of Afghanistan, how we, went in for one mission and they kept changing the goalposts ever since. And we spent trillions of dollars to basically reboot the Taliban. So they know how screwed up this is. They know that they are being lied to, they're being manipulated, they're being blackmailed to, and they're calling out the campuses, they're calling out the establishment, they're calling out the source funding that their tax dollars are going towards war crimes in other countries, and they're getting screwed 9 ways a Sunday by their own government in multiple different ways that they said enough is enough. So they send the Speaker of the House to talk to the college kids, and they thought it was going to work out. That's hilarious. So here, this lady tweeted out, it says, breaking, Columbia University announces classes will be virtual for the rest of the year. So I'm assuming that's like school year, I'm assuming. This comes after Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, pulled funding from the university. So now you know why Columbia is in scrambles right now. Now you know why they're panicking. Now you know why they have to, oh my God, we got to stop this. We got to stop this madness. We got to get the kids back in school. Because their top donors are leaving. Their top funders of this Ivy League institution are leaving. They're taking their money and they're running off because they feel they don't want to be a part of this. And now all of a sudden, Columbia University has to figure a balance to keep the peace. And there's no way to do it. There's no way to do it. Anti-democracy Zionists are showing up in their true colors by trying to control the institutions where they have positions of power and influence. It's time to dismantle Zionism. So there's the guy there, Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots. How ironic that is. How ironic that is. You're the owner of a sports team called the Patriots, and you're angry that a college institution is not sending money off to another country for them to enact their own war crimes. You're angry that college kids are speaking out, practicing their right of free speech and their right of assembly because they went against Israel. Think how ironic that is. You're the owner of the Patriots. And you're doing everything you can to stop patriotism on foot. Because what those college kids are doing is exactly the same demonstrations that your grandparents and your parents' generation and older generations went through with Vietnam, when they went through with the Korean War, when they went through the Gulf War, when they went through the Cold War. This is an anti-war movement, and they hate the idea that college kids and younger generations are not going to be folded down to the war machine, to the propaganda, and they're not dealing with this blackmail anymore because they know their government screwed them already. Their government has screwed them already. So what is the point of them kissing to the government if they know they're going to get screwed anyway? That their tax dollars, that all the Federal Reserve is being sent overseas to ignite 3 different wars. While college kids can barely get a proper education to make their ends meet so that they could succeed in the future. But that's so hilarious. Patriots owner Robert Kraft pulls support for Colombia amid virulent hate on campus. The decision by former student and major donors adds pressure to the university. So now it's crunch time. Now it's crunch time. Because, oh my God, how are we going to be this Ivy League school and look like a success and be this top dog of the educational world, even though their education is a bit, let's just say, questionable? How are we going to look like the top Ivy League school if our biggest donors don't accept us anymore? This is where Ivy League schools, this is, again, they produce, people for the establishment. You look at Mark Zuckerberg, you look at Bill Gates, you look at, the worst of the worst people. They came out of these schools. And it literally is amazing that, establishment pricks are angry at the college institutions that they went to, that they educated themselves for, to become establishment pricks, because the college campus is actually siding with the students and actually siding with the majority morale of America. That maybe sending all of our money overseas, wasting it on warfare, isn't exactly the smartest idea for the nation. That maybe calling out the war machine and calling out the manufactured attempt to wipe out an entire race of people of Palestine is going to get some blowback. That maybe people are not going to take that lightly. But good news, kids, you can sleep in tomorrow because your classes are now online.